Hello, my name is Amanda Baughan, and I'll be presenting our paper, Shame on Who? Experimentally Reducing Shame During Political Arguments on Twitter, on behalf of myself and my colleagues. Our thesis when we were working on this paper was that disagreement should be possible without deteriorating relationships. However, what we often see is that people find online political disagreements really difficult, often toxic, especially on platforms like Twitter, where there's a lack of context for the disagreement. In particular, with political disagreement, there's a prevalence of rude and shaming language that gets used and tends to gain a lot of traction. We see that when people are using rude language, they tend to get more interaction with political discourse, and those who shame others tend to get followers more quickly and more drastically than those who do not shame others, indicating that within the political sphere, there's a lot of rudeness and shaming happening. Shame is also used to sanction and distance people from views and behavior that they consider unacceptable or against community norms. This led us to believe that when it comes to people who share political views, they are likely using the shame and rudeness to distance themselves from people who don't share their political views. So we were particularly interested in understanding how shaming language is used during political discourse online between people who don't know each other and may be anonymous, specifically on Twitter. So we were curious about how likely are people to use respectful and shaming language when disagreeing with someone that shares their political identity compared to someone who does not. And does adding a respectful preamble to a statement of disagreement online increase civility from the respondent as measured by a prevalence of respectful and shaming language? Finally, we were curious about how adding a respectful preamble to a statement of disagreement online could potentially increase civility between people who have different political identities. Can we make these disagreements across the aisle a little bit better? So to understand this, we constructed two personas on Twitter, one that appeared as a mainstream liberal and one that appeared as a mainstream conservative. We then validated these perceptions with a survey on Mechanical Turk. We then used these personas to alternate disagreeing with profiles similar to or different from the views that our profile was emulating. So we did that with either respectful or neutral language in response to large left, center, and right-leaning news sources. So what this means is that each of the persona, for instance, taking the mainstream liberal persona, it would select 20 people who also appeared to be mainstream liberal to disagree with, and 20 people who appeared to be mainstream conservative to disagree with. And within those disagreements, we would alternate whether we had a respectful preamble saying, I respect your views and I think, or neutral language, simply stating, I disagree, or stating their opinion without saying anything at all. And this was in response to news sources such as the New York Times, The Hill, and Fox News in the replies to articles that they were posting. And the scripts of disagreements and the topics that we selected were developed from the Pew Research Center based on the most divisive political topics at the time. We then validated the interpretation of our script using Mechanical Turk, and we sent out 40 responses on Twitter for 2 days in August 2020 for 531 disagreements in total. After we had completed this research, we debriefed the subjects, we offered to compensate them, and then we gave them an opportunity to remove their data. So if you're interested in doing research along these lines, we recommend taking a lot of careful consideration. In our case, we were interested in capturing behavior that is often anonymous, and we did not want to have social desirability bias as we did so. But we definitely recommend contacting the SIGCHI Ethics Committee before using similar methods. We also talk about this more in our paper and in an accompanying blog post. We received 163 responses in total from the 531 disagreements. We then qualitatively analyzed those results for the respectful and shaming replies, as well as those that fit neither category. We used multinomial logistic regression and chi-square tests to statistically analyze the responses, and we corrected our post hoc tests with the Holm-Bonferroni procedure. When doing the qualitative coding, we came up with a code book in which responses would be considered respectful if the user would imply or state equal consideration of viewpoints, even under disagreement. For instance, saying fair point before having their response. For a response to be considered shaming, A user would need to directly reference the research persona and describe them or their stance with language that imposed a socially undesirable identity or degraded them personally. A response was considered neither if it fit neither of those two categories. What we found is that shared political identity, such as the in-group, correlates with more respect and less shaming, as measured by our multinomial logistic regression. And you can see here that in our regression, there were more respectful responses when we used respect, and there was also less shaming. Using the respectful disagreement increased respect, but it did not reduce shaming responses. And finally, we found that respectful disagreements with the outgroup yielded similar quality discourse to neutral disagreements with the in-group. So what this means is that when we use respect towards someone we disagree with, this can change the course of a conversation to receive more respect in return, essentially closing the gap between in-group and out-group conversations. However, overall, whether you are perceived to be similar to the person that you're disagreeing with sets the tone for the conversation more so than just using respect on its own. So this shows that even when respectful, disagreement can be enough of a face threat to lead to defensiveness that can take the form of shaming. We conclude that shame resilience should be explored as a socio-technical intervention to help people respond to disagreements with less shame, for instance, with a peer support network. This is because shame resilience can help people understand the universality of shaming experiences and give them a language to deconstruct it, so they can become more skilled in processing and moving past feelings of shame. And with the right relational support, people can share common experiences, create change, and even share laughter about their experiences. This approach was inspired by Brené Brown's work on vulnerability and shame as well. So thank you so much. If you have any questions, feel free to email me or find me at the conference.